User flow diagrams are a helpful tool in product design. Essentially, they're a visual representation that outlines a path a user take in order to complete a task in a product or service. It maps out each step from the user's perspective, illustrating how they navigate throughout the system and how they interact with different elements. The main purpose of a user flow diagram is to ensure that the process is intuitive and efficient, ultimately making the user experience much better. I must add that using user flow diagrams as a product manager helped me to identify and address all the edge cases in the design, which saved so much time later in the product development process. User flows should not be confused with customer journey maps. CJMs are a visual tool that outlines a broader perspective of the user interaction with the product. It also includes analyzing the user's feelings in each phase. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to create a video that dives into the creation and execution of CJMs. In this video, we're going to learn how to draw user flow diagrams with a simplified example to follow along. To make sure you identify your user's needs, I will also share some pro tips. So let's get started with the key component of a user flow diagram, including the starting point. The starting point is where the user's journey begins. While it's often the home screen, it can be any page on the app. The endpoint is when the final goal is met or the task is completed, wherever that may be. The steps or actions that the user performs are also part of the user flow diagram. Decision points are moments where users must make a choice that affects their path. Last but not least, feedback loops are instances where users receive feedback from the system, prompting further action or decisions. But before we dive into the drawing process, we must figure out what is the target audience or persona we want to focus on. Let's take a rideshare app as an example and say people under 20s trying to order a cab for a concert. The target audience will impact on which steps the user take and in what order. So make sure you do it right. Now it's a great time to define the business goals and the user goals and see how both can be met. Business goals could be increased profit, increased time spent on the platform, while users' goals would be whatever they want to complete. Signing up, checking out, uploading a video. In our case, it will be ordering a cab. Once we have the user's goal, we can now define the start and end point of the flow. The start point would be entering the app, and the end point would be entering the cab. Why isn't it when the ride is over?
Because I said so.
No, but really, it's a matter of definition. I believe that completing the ride successfully is a different flow. So this is why I define it like this, but you can define it differently. Okay, so now we can actually start drawing the flows. I usually use FigJam, but of course there are many other apps you could use, such as Miro or Lucidchart. To make it easier to distinguish between the components, we will use an oval shape for the start and end points, a rectangle shape for actions, a diamond for decision points, and an arrow that marks the flow's direction. In our example, the start point will be enter the home screen, and then all users are required to select the destination. To do that, they will have to type in the address. Now, it's a great time to speak about feedback loops. In some cases, your platform will provide feedback to your users, which impacts their flow. It could be a confirmation message, such as "we found you a driver," or an error screen if something went wrong. In this case, we will add the condition "destination exists," since users might type in a destination that doesn't exist. If so, the user should receive an error message and then type in the destination again until they find and select one. If the destination exists already, they could just select it and move on. After also selecting a pickup spot, users will arrive at the first decision point in their flow. Will they schedule the cab for later? If they do, they would need to be brought to a different screen where they select the time. This is an example of a decision point that creates a fork in the flow. Each diversion represents an alternative. After selecting a cab, users should wait until they are assigned a driver. Once they receive a confirmation message, they need to wait for the driver to arrive. I have to stop here for a second and ask you if you ever ordered a cab before being completely ready to leave the house. Before you tied your shoes or put the charger in the bag or said goodbye to everybody. I have to admit that usually I charge my phone while I get ready, and due to that, I might lose track of time without knowing if the driver has already arrived. In the scenario described, there's a hidden decision point.
Surprise, surprise!
Although I'm not looking at the app the entire time, I'm still waiting for the cab. In every step of the flow, we must be considerate that users might drop out. But here, although I stopped using the app, I'm still not ending the flow of ordering a cab. This is a crucial element to think about when creating user flows. I call this technique thinking outside the app because it's all about figuring out what your users are surrounded by and what they do when they're not fully in the box of your app. They could switch in between apps or they could leave their phone hanging for a few minutes. Meanwhile, they're in your app. So I'll add here a decision point called still in the app, followed by a diversion. Since the step get ready is outside the app, I'll make it blue to distinguish. Either way, users will go outside their houses once the cab has arrived. While drawing, identify and write down potential risks that might interrupt the user flow. In this scenario, a potential risk might be that the user isn't aware that the driver has already arrived. Once you have those listed, you could address them in the solution you're crafting. Lyft addresses this risk with their vibration notification that users can hear from miles. With that, they ensure that the cab ordering process is seamless with no delays or cancellations. To identify potential risks that stems from the environment surrounding your user, think about where your user will be. Is it outside? Is it noisy? Is there spotty internet? Is it dark? These things might mess up with the flow and should shape your solution. For example, it is hard for our target audience to locate their cab in a crowded area. To address this problem, Lyft added a feature where users could choose a combination of bright colors that will flash on the driver's dashboard for easy identification. After finding it, our users will enter the cab and start their ride, which marks the end point of this flow. And that's it, guys!
We did it!
After completing your flow, share it with your colleagues. They will have different perspectives and they could potentially point out things that you missed. Make sure you do it as soon as possible to increase their motivation working on this feature. Drawing user flow diagrams is just one step in the road of building products that fit your users' needs. Another step is understanding our innate cognitive biases and addressing them to build an environment that encourages users to meet their goals. Go over here to learn how the lingo, the best in the field, help users to commit to a certain learning schedule and actually come back and learn with one simple question in their sign-up form.